What truly lies hidden just beneath the rippling, reflective surfaces of our lakes, our rivers, and our unfathomably deep oceans? Is it possible that prehistoric predators, creatures we long thought were erased by time, still roam the lightless depths? Or could there be colossal, deep-dwelling beings that remain as elusive to our science as they are central to our darkest myths? There is truly something in the water. The only question is, what? The vast seas, lakes, and winding rivers of our world are as endlessly fascinating as they are profoundly enigmatic. For all of history, mankind has held a deep, almost primal affinity for these vast bodies of water that permeate our globe. They are the essential lifeblood of this planet, and we, as human beings, seem to possess an unshakable, inveterate curiosity about the crushing depths that wait just below those gentle, rippling surfaces. It is an interest that simultaneously seeds our wildest dreams and fuels our most terrifying nightmares. We have seen but a fleeting glimpse of this mysterious aquatic realm. In fact, it is a staggering truth that more human beings have physically visited the moon than have ever journeyed to the deepest, darkest trenches of our own oceans. Despite covering more than 2/3 of the Earth's surface, a staggering 95% of our seas and oceans remain utterly unexplored. Of the tens of thousands of new species that are cataloged and named each year, a huge number of them are aquatic. The truth, it seems, is an ominous one. There are potentially millions upon millions of waterborne species still completely unknown, still undiscovered. This begs the terrifying question: what else could be lurking in those abyssal depths? For centuries, sailors returned from their voyages with horrifying accounts of encounters with various sea monsters. Perhaps the most recognizable, the most dreaded among them, was the Kraken. In our modern skeptical times, however, these stories have been largely dismissed. They're seen as tall tales from the sea, spun to frighten fresh naval recruits or to deter pirates from trespassing. But it may surprise you to learn that sightings of so-called sea, river, and lake monsters are just as prevalent today as they were all those centuries ago. Interest in this subject saw a massive resurgence in the late 90s. An ultra-low-frequency sound was detected deep underwater by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA. The year was 1997, and the sound was so incomprehensibly loud, so powerful, that it was picked up by multiple sensors spread more than 3,000 miles apart. It was referred to simply as the bloop. Scientists initially suspected it must have been made by some colossal, as yet undiscovered marine animal, a creature larger than anything on record, larger even than the blue whale. By a later date, however, official investigations had concluded that it was likely nothing more than the sound of sea ice scraping against the ocean floor. Nevertheless, the world's imagination had been captivated. People had already begun to put more stock in the ancient stories surrounding sea monsters. The legend of the Kraken stretches back thousands of years. Homer's The Odyssey mentions a beast of terrifyingly similar description. But it was a Norwegian writer's book, The Natural History of Norway, that first described one in chilling detail. The author wrote that, according to fishermen, the beast was so enormous it could easily drag a 5,000-ton vessel down into the murky depths without effort. Its tentacles were said to be long enough to pluck sailors directly from the deck of a ship and pull them down to a watery grave. These tales were often taken with a pinch of salt. No naturalist of any serious repute regarded them with any seriousness. However, in the mid-1800s, the legend began to move from the realm of fiction towards scientific fact. A Danish naturalist named Japetus Steenstrup examined a large squid's beak that had washed up on a local beach. It was massive, far larger than any found in known specimens. He could only make estimations as to the animal's full size, but when he was later handed two enormous tentacles that had appeared on a beach in the Bahamas, he famously and boldly declared that the Kraken was indeed real. In more recent times, giant and even colossal squids have been documented, growing up to 15 meters in length. Some estimations have even suggested that they can grow as large as 20 meters. It's hard to believe, but live specimens of these huge animals were only filmed and photographed for the first time as recently as 2004. But could they really be responsible for the famous stories of old? It is unlikely. Those giant squids have never been seen at the surface. They tend to stay at crushing depths of between 800 and 1600 meters. And whilst they may look fearsome, they are predators of smaller animals. They are, by all accounts, relatively gentle creatures. It would seem that the myth of the Kraken was possibly nothing more than a wild exaggeration of their size and ferocity.
But then again, who truly knows what else is down there? After all, the legend of the Kraken was around for millennia before we were even aware that giant or colossal squids existed at all. So one might be forced to question, what exactly seeded this legend in the first place? In 2004, a GPS tag that had been attached to a 9-foot great white shark was discovered washed up on a beach in Australia. This was just 4 months after, and only a few miles away from where the shark was originally tagged. Wildlife conservationists analyzed the data contained within the tag and discovered something deeply disturbing. During those first few months, this female shark had been habitually hunting in the coastal waters, rarely exceeding a depth of 600 feet. However, at 4 o'clock in the morning on the 24th of December, the tag showed the shark suddenly plunging over the edge of the continental shelf to a depth of 1,900 feet. It did this in just under 2 minutes, a speed far faster than she could have possibly swum on her own. The initial belief was that the tag had simply detached from her body, but this theory was quickly ruled out. If the shark could not have swum as fast as the tag descended, then the tag certainly wouldn't have sunk that fast on its own. More importantly, during this rapid descent, the tag's internal thermometer recorded a constant temperature of 78 degrees Fahrenheit. This was much warmer than the 46 degrees that was recorded when it was attached to the shark's fin. This, coupled with the fact that it was sinking into much deeper and therefore much colder water, meant that if it had simply detached, the tag should have experienced a sudden drop in temperature. But this was not the case. When the tag itself was examined, it was found to be lined with a substance believed to be stomach acid. This final, chilling clue suggested that this 9-foot great white shark had almost certainly been killed and eaten by something bigger. The question was, what? Some people theorized that she had been attacked by a killer whale. Orcas have been known to hunt sharks, and they are certainly big enough, growing up to lengths of 32 feet. The issue with this theory, though, is the depth. The deepest a killer whale has ever been observed is a mere 850 feet, less than half the depth seen in this instance. 10 years later, marine biologists believed they had cracked the case, stating that the culprit was obviously another, much larger great white shark, acting either through extreme hunger or due to a territorial dispute. However, this theory is not without its own significant problems. First of all, it is extremely rare for great whites to resort to cannibalism, especially in waters as abundant with food as those found around Australia. If it was a territorial dispute, then again, this goes against everything we have learned about these huge predators. Being the extremely intelligent animals they are, they usually settle these disputes non-violently. Finally, there was the temperature. The tag recorded 78 degrees Fahrenheit. This was 14 degrees warmer than the highest possible temperature of a great white stomach. These inconsistencies have led some people to believe that a megalodon was responsible, possibly the largest, most powerful fish to have ever existed, at an estimated 60 feet in length. Despite the scientific community being largely in agreement that the megalodon went extinct about 2.6 million years ago, people have contested this belief, citing numerous eyewitness accounts of massive sharks from all over the globe. Whilst these sightings are mostly written off as mistaken identity, with whale sharks and basking sharks being the most likely candidates, this has not deterred people from believing that the megalodon is alive and well and still prowling the depths of our oceans. After all, in 1875, a dragnet from the British ship HMS Challenger pulled up, among other things, a megalodon tooth. When this tooth was dated, it was found to be only 11,000 years old. One can't help but question why such a large, unchallenged apex predator like the megalodon would ever go extinct in the first place. In any case, the megalodon isn't the only extinct species thought to still roam our oceans. In 1915, a German submarine, U-28, had a terrifying encounter with a huge marine reptile. Commander von Forschner reported in the vessel's logbook exactly what happened. He wrote that his U-boat torpedoed the British steamer Iberian. The steamer sank so swiftly that its bow stuck up almost vertically into the air. Moments later, the hull of the Iberian disappeared. The wreckage remained beneath the water for approximately 25 seconds when suddenly there was a violent explosion. This explosion shot pieces of debris, and among them, a gigantic aquatic animal out of the water to a height of approximately 80 feet. The commander stated, "At that moment, I had with me in the conning tower 6 of my officers. Simultaneously, we all drew one another's attention to this wonder of the seas, which was writhing and struggling among the debris. We all agreed that it resembled an aquatic crocodile, which was about 60 feet long, with 4 limbs resembling large webbed feet, a long pointed tail, and a head which also tapered to a point. The animal then sank out of sight after 10 or 15 seconds. If the commander's report, which was verified by his crew, is to be believed, then what he described sounds very much like a mosasaur. Mosasaurs were huge marine reptiles that could grow up to 60 feet in length. They are thought to have gone extinct hundreds of millions of years ago, but creatures matching this description have apparently been sighted in other parts of the world over the past 300 years. The scientific community, once again, rules out these sightings as merely the misidentification of saltwater crocodiles. But this seems a bit of a stretch, as most eyewitnesses have reported lengths of more than 50 feet. The largest saltwater crocodile on record was just under 20 feet long. But these alleged monsters of the deep are not just limited to prehistoric animals. Towards the end of the 20th century, a Japanese whale research vessel working in the Pacific reported seeing a huge creature breaking the surface of the water. It was approximately 90 feet in length, white in color, much like an albino whale, but it had a humanoid shape, with a round head and tendril-like arms or fins that were as long as its whole body. It had no legs, but instead the lower half of its body tapered and ended in a mermaid-like tail. Because of its unsettling human-like shape, the research crew named it ningen, the Japanese word for human. It has been sighted many times since, most commonly in the southern Antarctic Ocean, leading many to believe that it dwells in colder climates. Photographic and even video evidence does exist, but the quality of the footage leaves much to be desired, leading many to speculate that this colossal creature is nothing more than an elaborate hoax. Of course, such sightings do not just occur on the high seas. There are many lakes and rivers throughout the world which are thought to hide exotic or ancient creatures. Possibly the oldest and most well-known example is the Loch Ness Monster.
Sightings of Nessie date as far back as the 6th century. But the majority of eyewitness accounts only began to appear after the 1930s. There is a multitude of compelling photographs taken around Loch Ness and even video evidence showing strange disturbances out on the surface of the lake. Many of these sightings conjure up the image of a plesiosaur, a large aquatic reptile thought to have gone extinct around 66 million years ago. There are a number of theories that attempt to explain how a large group of plesiosaurs might have survived the mass extinction event and continued to eke out their existence in the lakes of the Scottish Highlands. Unfortunately, however, the legend seems to wane somewhat with each passing year as hoax after hoax is exposed. We are left wondering whether Nessie was ever real to begin with, is simply lying dormant, or has perhaps gone forever. Loch Ness is only one of many large bodies of water thought to be home to a plesiosaur. In 1977, a Japanese trawler fishing off the coast of New Zealand pulled up a large, rotting carcass thought to be the remains of a plesiosaur. The photographs are compelling, to say the least. A long neck and a set of fins are clearly visible. And while many scientists insisted that it was not a fish, whale, or other mammal, analysis later indicated that it was more than likely the heavily deteriorated remains of a basking shark. More recently, attention has been focused on the River Thames, with speculation that this ancient river, snaking its way through the city of London, is home to its very own monster. In 2016, a video was uploaded to YouTube which seems to depict a large, dark mass swimming upriver. Two humps are seen to briefly break the surface before submerging again and disappearing for good. A week later, another piece of footage filmed nearby was uploaded, which showed a very similar dark mass, again breaking the surface. Unbelievably, a third piece of film was captured during the same week. Once again, it shows another large, dark mass swimming beneath the surface. Wildlife experts were mystified. Although seals, dolphins, and porpoises have been known to swim up the Thames, nothing this large has ever been seen before, or for that matter, since. So, what are we to make of all these sea, river, and lake monsters? Is there any truth to these sightings, or are we to dismiss them all as nothing more than exaggeration and fantasy? There simply isn't enough compelling evidence to conclude that any of these creatures truly exist. But on the flip side, the depths of the Earth's waters are so opaque, so mysterious, and so inaccessible that they might as well be in some far-flung region of the solar system. We simply do not know what is down there. We cannot deny that the possible existence of oversized, predatory, or rarely seen creatures in our waters has captivated our imaginations. It seems we have plenty left to discover, and possibly plenty more to fear. The next time you go paddling in a lake, a river, or the sea, take a moment to consider what might be lurking, silently, just beneath your feet.